Earlier this week, we heard Billy Donovan say that he doesn't know if Lonzo Ball is going to play this weekend. Well, on Lonzo Ball podcast, he lets us know the expectation of when he will play. Stay tuned. And then also on this episode, we're going to talk about, will Dalen Terry be the odd man out of the Chicago Bulls rotation? Y'all know we're going to talk about it all and break it down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. If you're tuned in with me today, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. If you're new, you in for a treat, so make sure you subscribe. But hey, we just heard some news not too long ago that we got from Lonzo Ball's What an Experience podcast. Tried to pull a video here for you guys, couldn't get it, but in all, my man's Lonzo Ball, if you're willing to check it out, you will see for yourself. My man's Lonzo Ball pretty much came out and said that the expectation for him is to play the last 2 preseason games, potentially the last 3 preseason games. And man, is that a sigh of relief, because we had these conversations, I believe yesterday or the day prior, of Lonzo Ball not being set to play tomorrow's game on Saturday. And then we also had the questions of coming to it like, hey, what if Lonzo Ball doesn't play the entire preseason? Will that be considered malpractice? Because me and my and CDubb, we were on the side of Lonzo Ball needs to play. We want to see what he's made of. We understand what the doctors were saying and saying that, hey, we're trying to see how he reacts to certain things, and we was like, hey, what best way to see how he reacts to basketball activities than to place him in a basketball game? Now, we did later find out that Lonzo Ball was dealing with some sicknesses, so they was trying to build that strength up on that, and we kind of understood the caution that the Chicago Bulls were proceeding with, but we still had those questions like, man, it will be best if we see Lonzo Ball in some preseason action while other teams are not necessarily playing all their main guys, because some teams are going to be playing those rotational guys to get them in the rhythm, guys that's coming back from injuries, and guys that are simply just trying to make the team, not the type of level that you're going to see during the regular season, but some type of NBA level basketball that will be played that we feel will be beneficial to Lonzo Ball. So it's great that we heard Lonzo Ball come out and say what the expectations are. It is not the end all be all, but it's great to hear that there is a target set right now for Lonzo Ball. And I hope we see him sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, in between time, we chill on that topic. Y'all let me know how y'all feeling about Lonzo. Do you believe he's going to play those last 2 games? I believe he should. I believe he will. Potentially that 3rd preseason game, I would love to see him then. But again, we shall see. But now on to Dalen Terry. Will Dalen Terry be the odd man out of the Chicago Bulls rotation? It's a great question that we have to ask. And if I'm being quite frank with you, it's a lot of things that we could talk about when it comes to the last few players that are going to be a part of the Chicago Bulls rotation. We know that Billy Donovan is a guy that goes 9, sometimes 10 deep with his rotation, and there's going to be guys that's we absolutely know who needs to be a part of the rotations right off rip. That's everybody in the starting 5. That's everybody in the starting 5 that we've seen in preseason game 1. That's Josh Giddey, Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, and Nikola Vucevic. We know, at least right now, that these guys will be a part of that rotation. And then when we look at the guys that are coming off the bench for the Chicago Bulls, my train of thought is that you have to play these 3 players. That's Jalen Smith, Ayo Dosunmu, and Montes Buzelis. When you talk about Jalen Smith, that's your backup center, you're absolutely going to need him. He's the biggest guy on the bench that can, that can fill in and give Nikola Vucevic valuable minutes chilling on the bench. Then you look at Ayodo Sumu. Do I need to say more about this X factor that we have on the bench for the Chicago Bulls, the up-and-coming vocal leader for the Chicago Bulls? Nah, y'all know he gonna see plenty of NBA game action. Now, Montes Buzelis, that's a different case, but he is that shining rookie. He is that nice and shining rookie. And in game one, it was just very, very evident he needs to be on the floor. CDubb came out and let y'all know there is no reason Montes Buzelis should be going back to the G League. I second that notion. There is no reason why Montes Buzelis should not be seeing regular minutes each and every night. Like we've come to that conclusion. But the question is who is the ninth man? Who's going to be the 10th man? When we talk about these guys that's coming up, you know what I'm saying? We can talk about Torrey Craig, Julia Phillips, Dalen Terry, Kenny Lofton Jr., Javon Carter, et cetera, et cetera. We still going through the list, you know what I'm saying? Trying to make it through one, you know what I'm saying? Through 8 through 15, you know what I'm saying? To try to see who's going to make the squad, but not only make the squad, but also be a contributor and be a consistent part of the rotation that we hope the Chicago Bulls hope to get to and hope to establish. Now, candidate number one, that's Torrey Craig. And the reason I put him on the list is because after having a discussion with myself, CDubb, and my man's Hayes over on Locked On Bulls, it was just like, hey, we know that Billy Donovan likes to rely on his veterans. And though Torrey Craig didn't per se live up to the hype last season, we know that there are things that kind of got in the way of that. You know what I'm saying? Injuries was a thing of that for the signing of Torrey Craig last season. And viewing it, there is, you know, some reason to believe that Billy Donovan will lean on Torrey Craig at some point for that veteran leadership. Maybe sometimes for that trust that he might have in a veteran who has been around the league, and maybe just to see if he can get back to that. And not only that, just bring and provide more stability when it comes to that 4 spot, because we know he can go out there and play it. Now, this is when the lineups and the rotations gets a little bit tricky, because it comes down to Julian Phillips and then Dalen Terry. Now, these are two guys that are similar in some ways, but more so different. You know what I'm saying? But they do have some similarities when it comes to developing their talent. You know what I'm saying? Seeing what type of role that they will be in for the Chicago Bulls. What would the impact look like for the Chicago Bulls? In fact, when it comes to Dalen Terry, Bleacher Report listed Dalen Terry as one of their breakout candidates for the Chicago Bulls, going on to say that the Bulls seem to be pivoting to young players, trading DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso, but they're not tanking. That shift could give Dalen Terry more of an opportunity to play, though he needs to earn that time. I think the last part of the entire reasoning behind Bleacher Report belief in Dalen Terry to be one of these breakout candidates is he has to earn that time. And I'm absolutely with that. And the thing that it is when it comes to Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, it's like, I like both of these players, man. And that's what makes it so difficult if you have to pick and choose between one of these guys on who's going to be best suited for the Chicago Bulls. And I'll be real with you all. My heart is pulling for Dalen Terry simply because I love the guy that he is. I believe he has something. Now, the problem when you talk about the something is, can he be consistent with it? You know what I'm saying? Does it look like the game has slowed down for Dalen Terry? Because when we talk about for Julian Phillips, in his game, it just looks like he belongs. It looks like he understands and has the ability to grab what the NBA game is calling for on whatever night that it is that the Chicago Bulls are playing. So that's when it comes to playing on the side of you saying, man, I'm rooting for Dalen Terry. But then if you think logically, you saying, hey, Julian Phillips might be on top for the better guy. You know what I mean? He might be set up to be the better guy, at least for right now. And I will say this. We've only seen one preseason game, you know what I'm saying, be played for the Chicago Bulls. So it's not the end all be all, but there is a little bit cause for concern because Dalen Terry, I feel like in these preseason games, have to separate himself from the other guys that are trying to make the team, but also fight for the rotation. And he didn't necessarily separate himself yet. I understand it is a bit too early for that separation, but he has to start it off. I will say preseason game 1 for Dalen Terry was pretty good. But I will go back and push back and say that Julian Phillips' first preseason game was really good as well. So one of these guys, if not all of them, are going to have to show Billy Donovan, his coaching staff, that they belong more so than the other. That's what it's going to have to come down to. I think that one way, if you're looking at Dalen Terry and how can he not just fall off to the wayside after spending time with the G League, after, not receiving much playing time in his rookie year, you want to see some consistency at this point. And I think that one of the things that's going to help him separate himself is, has the three-point shot developed well enough to where it can be a consistent thing that Billy Donovan can count on when Dalen Terry is in the game? Yes, Dalen Terry can get rebounds. Yes, Dalen Terry can defend. You know what I'm saying? But what about the offensive side of the ball when it comes to Dalen Terry? I mean, right now, the Chicago Bulls have a young squad. They're transitioning on to a new era, a new iteration of Chicago Bulls basketball. And right now, they don't have the type of firepower necessary to just put guys in the game that can't give you anything productive point-wise. And I'm not saying that Dalen Terry is not capable. We just have to see it on a more consistent basis. That's what it comes down to. Because we know Julian Phillips, he's going to get majority of his points slashing and being a guy that's, occupying the paint and trying to get things situated in that regard. And he's always going to be a lob threat that's on the floor. And we've seen him shoot the three ball with confidence, tracking since last year. He has to be more consistent in that regard too, but you still can't discount what he's able to do in other areas of the offensive side of the ball. That's what it's going to come down to, because the Bulls will absolutely need that type of production for either one of these young guys to come out. And I know there's other guys that's on this squad. We talking about Javon Carter, Kenny Lofton Jr., EJ Liddell, THT, Orlot Bateem. But I just don't see any of these guys cracking rotation early on unless somebody comes out and just spread their wings, and you're looking at them like, absolutely, we got to include him. Those guys, I believe, are just fighting for those, those opportunities to remain at the end of the bench just for depth purposes and maybe some development purposes or something like that. But those guys weren't really talked about because I believe the other guys like Torrey Craig, Julian Phillips, and Dalen Terry are more noteworthy and have shown that they are more capable of filling the void that the Chicago Bulls need to fill in order to be a good, productive team this year. Not necessarily saying in wins, but at least being competitive enough to compete on night in and night out throughout the season. But that is it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Make sure you let me know all your thoughts and everything down below. Make sure you hit the like button before you roll up out of here. Thank y'all so much. Make sure you hit that like button. Appreciate y'all. Make sure you always see red. And you already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure.
Cognac.